Yo, welcome to the 35th edition of the Transparency Podcast. Man, 35th.
Yeah.
Weekly sports reference. So I'm going to go with the Big Hurt Frank Thomas. Shout out.
Snap. Frank Thomas, that's what it do.
Yeah.
Wasn't Reggie Lewis 35 too?
Reggie Lewis? Yeah. I thought you was going to go with KD.
Oh, yeah, KD was 35.
Yeah, but Reggie Lewis?
Yeah, isn't it the one that played for Boston?
For Boston,
that passed away?
Yeah.
He was 35, right?
Yeah.
He could have been one of the most. They would always talk about how nice he was too, and how much he was like dominant.
And he had a heart condition.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out RIP Reggie Lewis
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? But I go by the name of Big O. I got my guy Moody here. How you doing, bro?
Yo, man, it's been a good week. I ain't gonna lie, man. I've been busy, been working, and I've been shooting stuff, editing stuff. Looking forward to this month, man. It's just been a new month, man. I'm so excited about the things that's coming in this month. So I just can't complain right now. Thankful.
Awesome, man. Speaking of this week, I worked on patience, unconditional love, uncomfortable love, forgiveness, and understanding that everyone has flaws, even myself. So studying and identifying how I can get better. So speaking of studying, I suggest that our listeners get whatever you take notes on, whether it's a phone or composition book or whatever. We have a special guest here today. But, well, definitely he's going to make you rewind and press pause and all that type of stuff. And really marinate in your thoughts. And help you fill up for takeoff. But before we get into that, Moody, what do we have at the Content Complex?
Man, just last night, the Transparency Podcast, the Content Complex. We was down at Rudy Williams' birthday celebration, 1 year home.
Shout out to Rudy Williams.
Yeah, man. One year home. Yeah, we was able to build a relationship with him and his people, man. It's been good just to see what he's doing and the love that he got last night. And it was good, man. We was there, had a photo booth set up. Yeah. I shot some video there. I'm going to probably put out just some of the performances was there. So we was there live, man. It was dope. And of course, we continue to do photo shoots daily. We had a good weekend this weekend with photo shoots. So, we continue to grow, man. Each and every day is a new day to grow here at the complex. And we really starting to get more notoriety. People starting to notice us, hitting us up. We're getting a little bit more busy. So if you got some content that you want to create, come and holler at us, man. We got you. Whatever you need, from videos to podcast production to photo shoots to skits to commercials to promotion video, whatever you need, we got you here at the complex. And we got a boutique, of course.
Yeah, so don't hold on to your gifts. You know what I'm saying? Release them.
That's what's up. For sure.
Now to our guests. We have a minister in the building, y'all. We have a man of God who's a walking inspiration. A lot of times in life, we question ourselves. We question our purpose. We definitely question our journey, even looking at it as punishment at times. Why am I in this position? Who did I hurt to suffer like this? Even in our high of highs, we go through a little turbulence. But me personally, I believe it's a purpose for this turbulence in our lives. And the purpose is to pay attention to whatever we're going through. And honestly, paying attention is going to cost us, but we have to pay attention to what it didn't cost us, like our not being afforded to do something we want, but God saves us in the long run because we're acquiring something that we needed. We're all different. We have different needs and we have different journeys, which leads me to this title, Keep Ascending Through the Storms and Through Turbulence. Our guest here is going to help us prepare for takeoff. He's a life coach, an author, a minister of New Psalmist Baptist Church, who has an amazing role to talk about. Proud graduate of Hampton University, which, side note, I believe your beautiful princess goes there, right?
Yep, just graduated.
Woo! Yeah. Just graduated. Awesome. Shout out to her. But he doesn't just talk a good game. He plays the game with integrity and honor. He's very aspiring, not just from his book and the classes that he ran at New Psalmist, but the God-fearing man he is, which personally helped me become the man that I am now. He has a non-judgmental attitude with life, and that's why he's the coach of All God University. Soft-spoken, but his words are like Muhammad Ali. They float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. let's welcome to the Transparency Podcast, Minister Antoine Garrett.
Yeah, so I'm excited to be here at the Transparency Podcast. My man Harry, Moody.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, thank y'all for the invitation.
Let me do the claps.
I'm going to chop it up with y'all.
Yeah.
Round of applause. That's what it is. Let's go. I'm ready.
Yes. So let's get to the origin of this. Like, what made you become like the man of God that you are? What started you?
Wow. So transparency, right?
That's what we doing.
Yeah.
That's what we here for.
I didn't want to.
Wow.
I'd be lying if I said to you that I wanted to be this, that I wanted to be a minister, that I wanted to do this for God. My grandfather was a preacher. My father was a drug addict.
Ooh.
And so for me, church was filled with inconsistencies growing up. And so I did everything I could to run from church. I was made to go to church until I reached a certain age. And then I ran from church.
Wow.
And did what I wanted to do. I wanted to live my life. Church to me was limiting. Church was, church wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Church had a lot of rules and stuff. So real rap, I did everything I could to run away from church. And so I met somebody who was big into church when I was in college. Now, mind you, I'm doing my thing. I'm on a college campus at Hampton University.
Yeah.
I'm in my sophomore year.
Shout out to Hampton.
Shout out to Pirates. And I met a young lady who we became friends, and we spent a lot of time talking, and, I got interested in her. God was a huge part of her life. And so as a result of that connection and that relationship, my friend eventually became my girlfriend, and I couldn't separate the two. I couldn't separate having this girlfriend, and I couldn't ask her to be something she wasn't. While church was in my roots, it wasn't what I was putting on display.
Wow.
Okay.
And so my relationship with my girlfriend, who turned into my fiance, who's now my wife of 24 years.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Shout out to that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah.
That's big. Hold on.
So-
Let me get my...
Go ahead with that. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
We're not gonna blow past that.
Nah, you can't because marriage is under attack and too many marriages fail. So 24 years is indeed a blessing. And so
Amen.
how I got here was God, God being who God is, I wanted the relationship, but it was like, you can't have that without me. And so that's
man.
what led me back to God. It was pursuing a relationship, not wanting her to be something other than who she was at her core. And so I started to go to church when I would go to visit her. She lived in Jersey. I was in New York.
Okay.
I would go to visit. I would go to church with them. I went to church with them, real honestly, more than I went to church with my family in New York.
Wow. Yeah,
When
that
we were
happens.
dating.
That happens.
And so as a result of that, the messages started to penetrate. And so I started to grow, and I started wanting more. And that's what that was the path, that was the door that opened me becoming a minister.
Gotcha.
It wasn't that I wanted to be. I was doing everything I could to stay away from church.
Wow. So do you think that because the guy you are today, you still like a soft spoken, was that still the guy that you were without God, but you know what I mean? Like, were you still had the same heart that you have now?
I did, and I did not.
Okay.
I could be this guy, but not being funny, Kanye voice, I had a big ego. You know what I mean? Like I literally, women told me I was cute. So I thought I was cute, and I carried myself like I was cute.
Yeah.
And so people didn't always get the best version of me. Listen, fam, there's some people you might say my name to today, and they be like, not that guy. Like I don't fool with him, because I was that guy.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like where I am today is different. It's a progression.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And so people meet you at different places along your journey. And so unfortunately, if they're not around for the full picture, they only know you based on that snapshot. And there are some people who met immature Antoine who would write a scathing tell-all like that, no good, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Right.
But I learned. That's what it was. I learned that I didn't want to have my legacy be that I only did these things, but that I was also capable of being a faithful husband, of being a good father, of being a good friend. And so I pay attention a lot. Now I talk less and listen more.
Yeah.
That's big. That's a lot of growth, man. That's a lot of growth. And you know, we're gonna get into, of course, you know, all of those processes of you going through that. But like as you are right now, like, so just for anyone listening out, so right now you are a minister at New Psalmist. So what exactly is your role? What do you do? And like, how are you impacting people's lives?
Sure.
But also, how is a day-to-day for you? Like, how does your day-to-day go? And just inform people about who you are and what you're doing exactly right now.
Absolutely. So at New Psalmist, I've been there since we came to Baltimore. So I've been at New Psalmist 18 years.
Okay.
I've been a minister there for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And so part of my ministry role there now as a staff minister, which is brand new for me, my title is Minister at Large. And so what that is kind of like a project based. I'm helping to transform a couple of the ministries at the church, kind of redesign, if you will.
Okay.
And so kind of like a project manager, right? Like I'm looking at these ministries within the overall church and saying, okay, where are we? And what can we do to make things better? So I work with the pastor. I work with our director of ministry. I work with a lot of our volunteers to assess the function of the ministries and then come up with plans to make them better.
Nice.
So that we're meeting the needs of our congregation.
That's good, man.
Day to day, man, I juggle a lot of things, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I have a day job, you know, but I'm also at the church and they're on staff. And so, and of course, my wife and my children. So day to day, the word would be time management, bro. Okay, the word is effective time management.
Absolutely.
Some days are better than others, but the role, it's all about time management.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing, man. That's dope. That's great to hear what you're doing. And New Psalmist is a great church. I think I've been in New Psalmist, of course, a few times. And what you're doing, of course, is amazing, man. And seeing what you're explaining where you are. And like what in this growth that you've been in, where you are now, we're talking 10 years and, how you got here. What else made that transition a lot more easier for you once you started to get to those moments where I don't know if this really is for me? I mean, of course, you spoke about, you get into that relationship, and of course, a woman to help you do a lot of things.
Yes,
it's amazing what women can do for you, right? And I'll be honest, I've met women that were in the God, and I've had that communication with them, and sometimes it's like, oh wow, you into it like that, but I think it's always important to find it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think of course, being in a relationship that has God first, you had no choice, so. But just tell me some stories of maybe when you thought to yourself, man, I don't know if this God fearing life or these disciplined, lifestyles that I'm living, is this really for me? Like, name me a couple moments where you feel like you might have a question that possibly.
Sure. Wow. Man, you might do that like once a week.
Right.
But
that is true.
Because there are things that come up that you have to, you really have to look at and evaluate your place in it. But I'll give you one perfect example. So at a low point in my marriage, and I mean low, like I had my stuff in the car ready to go back to New York. And we had lived here in Maryland. And I literally, sitting at the kitchen table crying, heard God ask me, do you trust me? Like it was somebody, I was the only one in the house. Everybody else gone. I'm sitting at the kitchen table crying. God says, do you trust me?
Okay.
My answer was unequivocally, yes. I didn't know what came with that trust, but my answer was yes. And so at that moment, involved in ministry, doing all the things, and it was like, but my marriage might be falling apart.
Okay.
Because, I've been married 24 years, but listen, you got to work.
Rocky road,
you know what I mean? Like you have your ups, you have your downs, you have your good, you have your bad.
Right.
And so in that space, I was like, yes, I trust you. And I decided to stay, worked on it, did the things we needed to do. We went to counseling and all of that stuff. And so when you say this God-fearing life, part of it is A is trusting God. B is being able to ask for help and support.
Yes.
Because I didn't get here alone.
Absolutely. Right.
God has placed people in my space through mentors and brother relationships at church, in my church family, that have helped me to get to this place, that have helped me stay on a straight path. Because there have been times when I had to call one of my guys, like, listen, this is a situation. Help me see this another way. And the thing that matter, I think you and I were talking about it earlier, is no man's an island.
Yeah.
And so what helps me is God placing people around me to support me. That might have been my therapist individually or in our marriage. It might have been my guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could be a family member. But staying this path takes support, and it takes complete trust in God.
Wow, that's big, man. I'm going to get into some stuff, but that was big. You go ahead.
Definitely trusting God's timing. I mean, because God's timing is like essential for me personally. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I remember meeting you, you were running, like you was talking about ministering at New Psalmist. When I met you, you were running Man Up on Saturdays. And I remember your story when you basically said that when Man Up started, it was only you and
Dana.
It was
me and one guy.
It's just you and one guy.
Year.
For a whole year. But he was traveling from East Baltimore, right? Yep. East Baltimore on a transit. Yeah, and all that stuff.
Yeah, MTA, yeah.
And he kept it going, Dana. And it just grew into something so big. And it was just fascinating, the fellowship between the brothers. So, like, hearing you say that, like, it like I said, you talk about mentors, and I look up to you. I look up, like, I look up to you and Minister Maurice. Like, you guys, I mean, I love the guys at New Psalmist and everything, but you and Minister Maurice has always been has a special place in my heart, because I had some dark issues in my life, and again, trusting God's timing and like how you was talking about your circle and stuff like that. Like, I'm starting to learn how to do that type of stuff now. So definitely, it's definitely a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so the important thing about trusting God's timing is that we can want what we want when we want it, and when it doesn't happen that way, we get frustrated.
Yes.
And we might even give up and walk away from some things.
Yes.
Prematurely.
Yes.
Because we didn't have patience. So part of it for me, you mentioned the men's group. So Moody, I was facilitating a men's group, and we, put out these flyers, talk to the pastor, talk to my support person at church. We thought it was going to be really popular. It was for men. Bro, one person came.
Man.
One person.
I'm not surprised, man.
And this one person, we met on Saturdays. He would call me every Friday and say, hey, we meeting tomorrow? Because he had to schedule the MTA. He had disability. He would, have to get over to church.
Yeah.
Forever Dana,
he
man.
kept me, Dana. Shout out to Dana.
He
kept me coming. He kept me on my assignment.
Right.
Because I would have walked away from that thing.
Right. You had to read.
I didn't know that staying with it by honoring the assignment, God placed Dana in my space to help me honor the assignment. I said yes, but I was willing to walk away from it because there was only one guy coming.
Right.
I was like, well, maybe this ain't, I get up every Saturday, I prepare these lessons. I got one brother showing up, but that one brother led to 30 in a class, led to 4 or 5 different classes happening throughout the week, led to hundreds of guys, that God has then brought through this space, obviously at our church under the leadership of Bishop Walter Scott Thomas, guiding the overall ministry. It has shaped and changed the lives of many men. Harry is one who's come through that space, but there are many men whose lives are better.
Right.
Because I didn't walk away from the assignment that God had given me. I could have gave that up.
That's big, man.
Because it didn't fit what I thought it was going to be.
It's bigger than that. You're right. That's
bigger than me.
That's big, man.
Yeah, it's above me now. So
speaking of those groups, man, I was just thinking as you were speaking previously about reaching out to someone. I think about that as a lot, having, God men of God in my life that I can really communicate to. And, you know, it's few, you know, to be honest. And I'm gonna make sure I get your information, of course, and I'm gonna reach out to you just sometimes just to have a combo with you, because I know, you know, you doing what you're doing in this program is probably, of course, like you said, it's growing, and I want to be a part of it for sure. What do you say to somebody who doesn't have that, and say, when do you think it's a good time to try to, I don't know, be open enough to even reach out to somebody? Because if I'm sitting here and I don't really have anybody, but of course I have a platform like this so we can bring people on like this, so I can meet people like yourself.
Sure.
Some people don't have the ability to do that. You know, some people having trouble with maybe their situations and can't speak to somebody about something that they feel right, trying to get through. So what do you think is the best thing to do for what is best for someone to do in that situation?
Sure. Reality says that there are more people in your space than you recognize. Part of it for us as men is that we're socialized and taught to keep stuff to ourselves. So we have a hard time saying, when somebody asks you a question, how you doing? Moody, what's the typical answer?
I'm good, man.
I'm good.
Right. I'm good. How you feel?
How many times is I'm good a lie? How many times
probably
is I'm
100%.
good? Right. I'm good is a cover. Right. I'm good is a smoke screen.
It is.
So when you say people don't have people, it's because they always tell them I'm good. So you don't think you have people because people don't think you need help.
That's a fact.
Because you always put on this persona, this I got it under control.
Right.
One of the biggest ways to get help is by acknowledging that you need help.
That's a fact.
Now that's a bold step for some men. It's something they've never, ever done. It takes courage and it takes vulnerability. So how does a brother get help when they don't have anybody? It's being willing to take the chance to say, I need help.
Yeah.
That's the door opener right there.
Yep.
When you do that, everything changes from that moment. But if you don't have anybody and you really feel like you don't have anybody, I encourage brothers, look, I brought this book with me today. This book is a journal, right? Wow. This book has hopes. This book has dreams. This book has frustrations. This book has the things I couldn't tell anybody else. When I didn't think I had anybody else, I always had a way to get it out. Because the worst thing I could do was just keep it bottled up inside. So this became my best friend for a while. This is where I wrote down. This is where I released all of those frustrations. So I tell anybody, if you don't feel like you have a physical person, go to the dollar store, buy a journal, get a pen, and write until you feel better. Release it all.
Wow.
I got about 5 of these. This is probably my 5th one that I've been through.
Wow, man. That's big. That's big. And, you know, I'm an artist and I do things, creativity, and I do a lot of expression that way as well. And I do have a few people, again, that are in my life, but, you know, it is few, you know what I mean? So that right there, man, means a lot, you know what I mean? So thank you for expressing that, because somebody might need to know that, you know what I mean, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, there are relationships we have, but you don't trust everybody. Yeah. Right?
That's what I was going to, that's what I was
You obviously want to be mindful of who you share your heart with, who you give yourself to.
Yes, sir.
You want to know that it's a safe space.
Yes,
but that happens through relationship. The more time I spend with somebody, I realize I can trust them. That I can say something and then see how they respond to it. Are they judging me or are they accepting of me? Right. And so the relationships you have, the time you spend with them, you get a better understanding of, okay, I you know what? I can actually share some things with this brother. I can say something and he don't look at me sideways, or he don't judge me, or he don't feel no type of way because I said, you know what, I'm sad. You know what? I might actually shed a tear. How many brothers feel safe enough to cry in front of another brother? How many of us, because we've been taught and made to kind of make those tears roll back, we don't have that. And so part of it is
you flooding inside, bro.
Suffering in silence, they call it.
Oh, you're flooding. You're drowning yourself.
You're hurting inside.
You're dying.
And you're carrying all this stuff because you don't feel like you can talk to anybody else. But in reality, there may be people who are just waiting for you to say, I'm not okay.
Right. Man. So just establishing, because I grew up and I always talk about my dad. I love my dad. I love my father. All respects to my dad. But my dad was a person that he didn't like crying in front of him. He didn't like it. He didn't, you know what I'm saying? It was time that my brother got into a fight with a guy, and like I think they kind of like banked him or something like that. And basically he ran and told my dad, and my dad was like, "His weights downstairs, start lifting some weights." I mean, that's what kind of father, like, you know what I'm saying? My father was very, very tough. So like I grew up just being transparent. I didn't like my father because like he would like that type of stuff. Like I couldn't hold my emotions. I was just so emotional that I couldn't hold it in. I would just explode. So like I let them flow, and like I gravitated to my mother more, and your mama's boy, all this type of stuff, and blah blah blah. So that's what I was going to ask you, like for the young fellas out here that like you said, you got to find a good circle. That's cool, but how did you identify? Because for me, when I meet people, they all start with, it's kind of like a grading system for me. Sure. So it's like a school grading. Like when you start in school, everybody has 100, and then eventually, all right, we deduct 5 points off. Blah blah blah. I don't start off with a 0 and make you have to grow into this. And I know people do it differently. I do it with, though, everyone starts with 100, and then eventually I'll identify who this person is. So how do you think that people can build trust? Like, say, for instance, people that their father, like how you were just saying, your father was on drugs and the uncle was this kid was molested, like some kid that just was hurt all around. How can they find someone, in your mind, how can they find someone that you think they can trust to talk about?
I think there are a couple things that at play there, right? So first and foremost, many men are hard on their children, especially their boys, and even I was on my sons, because we know the world is hard, and so what happens is we want to make sure that they're prepared, quote unquote prepared,
yes,
to face the world, right?
Yes.
And so we kind of do that, and then other men pass on what they've had done to them, right? That men don't cry, and suck it up, and you want me to give you something to cry for, and all of those kinds of things, which I've been guilty of.
Right.
Then there's the piece of it, though, that when you really step back from it, you have this young person who's trying to figure out the world, and they've been hurt, like you said. They've had different things happen to them. They've been hurt.
Yeah.
That support may not come from a family member. That support may come from a teacher. That support may come from a coach, a mentor, somebody else in their space who provides them with boundaries, who provides them with security, who provides them with affection, right? Because sometimes it's just affection that you need, somebody to show you that you are loved. Sometimes it's just somebody telling you that they love you. Yeah. Trust is built through time and experiences. The more time you spend with people, the more you journey with people, the more you realize that there's acceptance, that there is unconditional love, that there is relationship, that y'all can vibe, and then as a result of going through those things, then you feel the connection being built and strengthened. So that's how that trust happens. The hardest thing that you can do, and there's something, I'm taking these classes, right, working on a degree, and so I learned this phrase that has just been stuck in my brain. It's called adverse childhood experiences.
Wow.
And all of us as children have a number of different adverse, hurtful, harmful things that happen and how they impact us. And until we, address those things, right, because you talked about the young guy. If somebody, like for me, my dad went to prison as a result of his addiction, right? Sad. And then somebody else's parent may have abandoned him. Somebody might have dealt with abuse. Somebody might have been physically, emotionally, verbally abused. Somebody else might have been, in a low-income situation where they were trying to figure out where they're going to get enough food to eat. All of these various things impact those young people. Yes. Then they go to school, and it's like they can't focus on an education because they got all this stuff going on.
And they getting teased about what they have on.
And there's nobody who is willing to ask this one question. What happened to you?
Ooh.
we always say, you know, we talk about kids and even adults, right? Like, oh man, he's this, he's that.
You're judging him.
What happened to him? What is his story? Until we take the time to really understand how a person got to be in the seat they're in and extend a little bit of grace.
It's a fair assessment.
We spend our time, and society does, labeling and judging folks without ever giving out just a small dose of empathy and trying to understand somebody's journey. If that happened on a broader scale, we'd operate differently in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would.
I agree. That's 100. That's definitely 100. I mean,
it's far and few, you know, to get that grace from others. I think it is important. Like, empathy is very important in my life. You know, I think it's one of the most important things that us as humans can give to one another. You know, I mean, personally, I just really feel that. Because you can always try to, I mean, I do it a lot. I try to put myself in people's shoes a lot because not to be like, oh, I want to know what it's just that I know that everybody got something going on with them. Everybody got some stuff with them, man. Nobody's perfect. Yeah. Everybody has some things that they're going through. And then when I don't, because I give it, and then when I don't receive it, that makes me go guarded. That makes me like, man, I don't even really want to talk to nobody. You know what I mean? I'm going to just take care of my stuff myself, but I'm going to still be empathetic for others. But I'm not going to really talk to nobody because ain't nobody really trying to hear it. You know what I mean? And then I get into that mode. But I've been opening up a lot lately. And empathy is important, man. Like, what do you think? What do you think helps with not getting that empathy from another person? Because you can be in a relationship, and I'm in a relationship right now, man. And I think that, you know, me and my lady, we have been going through some things, but we are working it out. You know, we trying to make this union right, you know what I mean? And I might not feel like that empathy isn't there sometimes, you know what I mean? So what do you think, as a man in a relationship, what do you think is best for us in those moments? Because men, you know, if we not getting it, we just look at it like, you know what, I'm not even gonna deal with you no more. I'm gonna keep it pushing. That's what a lot of us do. But some of us do want to work this thing out. And some of us do put ourselves in a position where, you know, we don't put ourselves first. You know, we put the relationship first. You know, so what do you think about that?
Moody, interestingly enough, my wife and I literally had this conversation this weekend.
I like that. I like that.
Unrealistic and unspoken expectations. So it's not my job to make my wife happy. Happiness is an inside job. It has nothing to do with me. It's not her job to make me happy. Now, I'm sure there'd be some marriage therapists and other folks who might disagree. Happy wife, happy life, all of that cool stuff. Right. But that sets up an expectation that everything I do is designed to make her happy.
Wow.
That's the
if
fact.
She's not happy, then I will in turn look in the mirror and say, man, you falling short somehow.
You picking yourself apart.
Now I've done something wrong because I didn't make her happy. But that was never my assignment. My assignment was to be priest, protector, provider, not happiness maker. That wasn't for me to do. And so that's an unrealistic expectation. The other part is unspoken. You come into a relationship and you expect you gonna get a hot meal cooked every night. You expect sex gonna happen regularly. You expect she gonna wash the dishes. You expect she's gonna do the laundry, but you've never said that to her. So now you sitting back feeling some type of way about a situation, but you've never said it. That's your expectation. You didn't share that with her and give her the opportunity to say, you know what, Moody, I can do this, but I can't do that. If you don't have those conversations, it's going to be a lot of resentment, a lot of frustration, a lot of locking horns and bumping heads over what? Your expectations that you have of her and her expectations that she has of you that are either A, unrealistic, or B, unspoken.
That's big.
And then you get a broken relationship as a result of it.
That's big.
It's the source of many conflicts.
It is.
We just don't talk to each other. Listen, I got married, I was 24. I didn't know what marriage was. I didn't know what it meant to be a husband. Even if I saw somebody else successful or struggling, I still had to do this thing for myself. My wife and I still had to figure out what was going to be our flow. You want the ketchup cold or ketchup hot? You put the toilet paper over or under? I can't do it the way just because we did it at my house. That's how we going to do it. No, we got to have some conversations. from the smallest to the biggest.
Yeah.
That's how relationships break down. We just don't talk to each other.
And on a surface, not to cut you out, on a surface, just looking at you and your wife, y'all like best friends. Like when I see y'all, it's inspiring, man. Like when I look at both of y'all, I see y'all at the mall. I see y'all everywhere, and she's just so like, she's so what's the word? Like she just always just happy. Like it just say like she's always happy. So
it's a good thing that ain't on me.
Right,
because there be some days when she ain't happy.
Right, so that's what
because I'm a knucklehead when I want to be.
That's what I was just saying, man.
That's hard to me.
So it's just wow. Like it's just that when you said that, because I never even I've been alive for 39 years. I never thought about it like that. I understand like you shouldn't. I think that's why I fall short in relationships. That by you just saying that, because I put that level. I be picking myself apart, looking in the mirror like, what have I done? I did everything I could. I emptied my pockets per se. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I went broke trying to make this person wherever, you know, and it's just like, wow.
The other part of that though, Harry, to your point is, man. You know, obviously in marriage, we have a lot of resources. We read up on a lot of things, and there's something called 5 love languages, right? And so the gist of that is give love the way the other person receives it. Part of our frustration is we do things thinking that this is love, but that's not the way the other person receives love. Mm-hmm. So you can go broke, you can buy out the mall, you can do all of these things, and then looking at the other person like, yo, I just did this, and this for you. Mm-hmm. And all she's saying is, but were you there? Yeah. Did you hold my hand?
Wow.
Did you hug me when you came in? Did you listen to me when I had a problem?
Did you listen?
Did you listen?
Yeah, that's big.
Right? She don't care about all the stuff you bought. She just want to feel heard.
Right.
So the reality for all of us in relationships is we have to be willing to study our partner, to ask questions, to understand. So what does it mean? Simple question. What does love look like to you?
That's a really good question, because I was sitting here while you were talking about it. It's a great question. It's a great question. Love, for me, looks like, you know what's crazy? I don't know.
You know what?
I don't know.
Listen.
See, that's how it happens, man. That's
you know, I don't know, because now, I'm be honest with you, because now what I thought was love was kind of like a facade. You know, I think love like now, and again, I grew into how I think now, but I think love is, you know, respecting each other.
Yeah.
You know, being able, like you said, to talk. You know, now I say like look upon, like it's probably looked upon now like different now, but praying together. Again, understanding. Yeah, like I used to get looked at as a weirdo in my relationship because I would stare at my mate while they were sleeping, just studying them and trying to understand, like looking at them. And that's how deep it was, to see if they were happy, if they were sleeping comfortable. Like I could tell, like when somebody was having a rough night, like a rough dream, and she'd be able to wake up and say, like, how did you know that? I was like, you look like you were struggling while you were asleep. But then it was times that she was asleep, and I was like, you must have had a good night. Like you look like you was peaceful. And she was like, yeah, I was very peaceful. So, but to answer your question, is so many dynamics that I can't just land on one.
Sure.
So maybe I'm still, you know, I'm preparing for takeoff right now.
Yeah.
To figure it out.
Love, man. Love is not easily irritated. You know, love is empathy, compassion, kindness. To me personally, I really feel that. And I think that, you know, we don't hold on wrongs, man. You know, we don't point each other's flaws out. You know what I mean? That's love. You know, enduring the difficult moments. Having that understanding, compassion about things, you know, and just willing to really sit there and listen and try to understand what we doing here. You know what I mean? That's what I feel it is. Of course, it's a scripture, and me and my lady, you know, read the Bible, and we read the scripture. I think it's Corinthians. I can't think of the exact. First Corinthians, chapter 13, right? And that really explains what I feel like I've grown to know. I've grown to, you know, me being in this relationship, I've grown a lot and learned a lot about love. Yeah. And that's what I feel like I want as my love for my partner. You know, that's what I want. I mean, I want to be able to have difficult conversations without easily getting frustrated or upset just because it's not going the way I want it to. You know what I mean? So those moments, you know, you learn a lot when you really want something, but also when you learn about your partner and you really do love that person. You know what I mean? So that's what I feel like.
It's important to your point, right? Like, so scripture does have a definition of what love is. And not everybody will read scripture. But what I would encourage the person, because somebody might listen to this who's not a Christian, like, man, I ain't fooling with that Bible. Okay, that's fine. But have a conversation with your partner, right? Have a conversation with the person you're dating. What does love look like to you? Right? Because for some people, love is nothing but control with a tuxedo on. For some people, love is lust magnified. Right? The love ain't there if the sex ain't there. Now, wait a minute. What, you supposed to love me in the good and the bad, and you know what I mean? Like, so the definition of love will vary. The important thing, and it varies by couple, right? Because of what your experiences are, what your lived experiences are. But the main thing is that I would want anybody to take away from this. Give it some thought for yourself, but also if you're in relationship, have a conversation with the other person. Listen to what they're saying about what they need in a loving relationship. And then be honest. I can do that or I can't do that. What happens quite often is the partner says, I need this, 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 and this. And us, I'll just speak from a man's point, you know, we want what we want. And so it's like, baby, I'm going to do all of that.
Right.
And you do it until it no longer suits your serves your purpose.
That's fact.
And then she's pissed because, like, you promised to love me. Yeah, I said that, but I was really just trying to do me. Be honest. You know what I mean? Like I told you, there's some people you might hear my name and they don't fool with me. Because when I was coming up as a teenager, I didn't know love. And so what I did was I manipulated love. I manipulated the word love and the actions associated with it. So early on, I took advantage. I manipulated a lot of things, manipulated people, because I was searching for something that I was missing. Told you my dad was in jail from the time I was nine and a half, up until I was 20.
Wow. It's a long time.
I was searching for a love from a parent. And so what that love for me became transactional.
Wow.
And many people view love as transactional. It's only love if you're doing something for me. It's only love if you're giving me something. It's only love if you loving me.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you don't love me.
So I got a question about that, because not saying like I'm perfect or nothing like that, but I have like a strong unconditional love for people. And even if I'm not getting love back, like I still love them unconditionally, and I will love them until I sink and drown in loving them. So how do you move past loving someone unconditionally? Because eventually, the ship is sailed. Like, so how do you get past that?
Two things. Motive is important. Because if you're loving somebody with no expectation, right? If you're doing it because that's who you are, that's where your heart is, and your motive is pure.
Yes.
And you want the best for them, then you don't have an expectation that there's going to be reciprocation. And so you do things because you genuinely want the best for the other person.
Right.
It lessens the impact if they don't respond likewise.
Right.
Because you're doing it because you genuinely want somebody else to be better. Right. You hold the door for somebody because you don't want them. You see them with baggage coming in the door. You hold the door because you want them. You want to make life better for them.
Right.
You don't do it because next time you go through the door, you want somebody to hold the door for you.
Yeah.
You do it because you want to help. Right. And so we give love from that. If you give love from that same pure place, which may require some learning or some unlearning.
Right.
But if you do it from a pure place, you do it without the expectation that somebody else gives you back what you've given.
Right.
In relationship, though, when we go back to expectations, right? Because if I in my relationship am doing all these things and I'm like, all right, she ain't responding the way she's not meeting me halfway. Did y'all talk about that? Did she understand what you needed? Did you clearly communicate that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't clearly communicate it, no need to be bitter or resentful. You just know how you got to move differently going forward.
Yeah.
I need to express what it is I need in this space.
Yeah.
I need to be honest about where I am in this space.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Your needs may vary. What you need right now is not going to be what you need 5 years from now.
Right. That's true. But
you have to be willing to share that. How do you get past it? You own what's yours.
Yeah.
That's the hard part for a lot of people, is being willing to be accountable for your actions.
Right.
I gave love to someone who was incapable of loving me back.
Yeah.
But I gave love to someone and never clearly told them what I needed in return. And gave them a chance to see if they could meet my needs or not.
Yeah.
If you don't, how can you can't hold me responsible for something, Harry, if I never knew what you needed.
Right.
I'm not a mind reader.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a mind reader.
Right.
You expected her to do a thing that you never made clear. Free yourself of that.
Yeah.
Right? Release that person from expectations that were never clearly communicated.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if you do your job, like I just always, and it's just with everything. We talk about children, mother, like ex-girlfriends and all that stuff. Like I always just I just felt like I did what I was supposed to do. Like just worried about what I was supposed to do and like try to do my job. Now I did like communicate things and say like, hey, this is, can we work towards this? And it was always like, yeah, we can work. But then eventually, you find out that they're not. My last relationship, she basically was like, I'm not capable of doing this anymore, Harry, and she used to do it. You know what I mean? And I said this was like my last cry with her was that, I know it's in you because you did it. Like for years, you did it, and she just was like, I'm not that person anymore.
That might be the hardest statement for people to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because when you meet somebody and you fall in love with them, the hardest thing to understand, and I don't know why, but it is hard for us to understand that people change.
They do.
Like every day is different. Life is full of changes.
It is, man.
And so we hold people to the space and place we met them. We it's almost like we take a snapshot of it, right?
And keep it in your pocket.
And
right?
that's how you always see them, physically, emotionally, that's how you always see them. That person has gone through some things. Mm-hmm. So they're growing, they're changing, and it may not be what you need. And that's the hard part. It's not what you need, but it may be what she needs.
Yeah. Right?
She's grown to a different place. And as a result, this situation is not feeding her in a way that she needs it to. So the hard part is watching that person walk away because you always wanted it to be a good thing. You always wanted it to be great. But if it's not feeding them, don't make anybody stay where they don't want to be.
Absolutely. And it's
because that impacts everybody.
It's a fair thing too, because I'm very fair. So when I was told that, and I was told that in my marriage too, before we got to, but not to go too deep into it, but I accepted that, and still to this day, I still pray for her every single day. I think she's married now, or about to get married, and I pray for their marriage too, like their union and everything. And I just always said, if I can't, and I say this to God, and this the God honest truth, I say this, if I can, and I say this to them, if I wasn't the one that could make you happy, I pray that you find someone that you can find happiness with. And
that's growth.
Yes, that's growth. Sir.
You know what I mean? And that's the understanding that. But at the end of the day, Harry, just remember this: you were never supposed to. Happiness wasn't supposed to come from you, right? Mm-hmm. Their happiness is an internal thing, They might find someone who compliments them, but happiness is not the job of you or whoever anybody's in relationship with. So, you know, that listen, man, it happens, right? We have experiences.
It's an amazing
we learn
journey
from them, we grow from them. Life is a journey.
Life is a beautiful journey.
Life is a journey. And so learning about it, getting ready for all the things that you have to do, you know, is important, but trusting the timing. Trusting God's timing that maybe you didn't understand it then, but you went through it so that you can be prepared for it when the right opportunity comes your way.
God is definitely preparing me, brother. God is definitely preparing me.
Man, you know, thank you again for coming. You're not leaving. I just want to say thank you for coming, because I don't think we actually said thank you for coming.
Yes.
Man. Appreciate you coming. And we're going to get into a segment, transparency questions here at the Transparency Podcast.
Okay.
We're just going to throw a few of them at you. And, you know, these are just, you know, regular general questions. Nothing too deep. Nothing, hopefully, not too much you can't answer.
Okay.
But I had one that I was just thinking about. As a person that's pursuing God, what are, like, I would say 3 things that you feel that's important for them to do to really follow? And not necessarily something specific. I mean, something specific, but just like a general lifestyle, something tangible, something that they can do just to get closer to God, to feel like they're, you know, they want to have change, they want to have transformation, but they don't know, you know, what to do. What's the steps? So what are like a few things or 3 things that they can do?
Sure. For a person who's looking, interesting, you said, you know, trying to develop their relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
So developing your relationship with God, I think, requires intention.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by intention is you are actively seeking out relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
You are setting aside time in your day
Mm-hmm.
to talk to God. That's what prayer is, right? A conversation between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And so you set aside time to talk to God. You also want to know more about God.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know, one way is to read, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might read the Bible. You might read other resources about God. But most of us carry a phone. I mean, it's attached to the hip, right? It's always with us. So you literally have this computer that you can hold in your hand and go to Google, you know, go to Dr. Google and type in whatever you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
You'll come up with a variety of resources that you can look into.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is fellowship, and that's connection with other people.
Okay.
If you know someone else who has a relationship with God, sometimes it's important to ask a question of somebody. Hey, you go to church, or you're a spiritual person. You know, what's that situation like for you? Or how do you go to God when you're hurting? How do you go to God when you can't trust people? You know, being able to fellowship with others and talk and go through things together is important. So you can set time for God. You can do your research, and that means, you know, reading the Bible or other resources, because there's so many different books about God and how to grow in your relationship. But then the third thing I would say is you can talk to others and you can connect with someone else to help you on your journey.
Absolutely. That's definitely great points, man. Great points there. What is I know we talked about a time where you like I said, you might have thought like, oh, this life path that I'm going may not be for me, but I would like to know one of those moments where it was just a lot of pain in your life and it turned for good. You know, and I know we all go through things, but what was a moment in your life, and this is the transparency, you know, it ain't got to be too, you know what, but just something that you felt as though, man, this was very difficult, this was painful, but then it turned into something a lot more greater, or turned into a revelation that you know,
testimony.
Exactly, a testimony where you are now.
Sheesh, which one?
I mean, they happen, man. It happens. Life happens.
Which one? I think I'll share about what I've already said. And that was my father's addiction. When your parent is incarcerated for that long and you're a young person, there's a lot of pain. You know, and there are a lot of young people who, you know, a lot of people who are adults now who know about that life, right? Who had parents incarcerated. What changed for me, though, Moody, was my dad wrote me a letter. And he explained his journey. And so I went from blaming my dad for his absence to understanding my dad. And so reading his letter where he shared some of the things that led to him experimenting with drugs, which turned into addiction, which at the time in New York State, like every other state, they treated addiction as a crime.
Yeah.
And so if he came up, you know, if he was dirty when he went to his PO, he got violated. He went right back to jail.
Right.
And so he did a lot of things related to his addiction, but I didn't understand my dad. And it wasn't until I got the letter that I understood and I read it. And that letter opened an opportunity for he and I to have a conversation.
Wow.
And so I had a lot of resentment for my dad. I had a lot of pain towards my dad. But what changed was forgiving my dad. It was understanding that he was a man who was hurting and the addiction was an illness.
Wow.
And it wasn't, you know, that was the reason he was absent from my life.
Gotcha.
So that was the difference. That's what made the difference.
Man,
Them letters are strong. Them letters are strong because that, I mean, is well documented. I talk about it all the time. My daughter, Taylor, and I had a trying time this year, over the last 2 years. And what opened it up was I wrote her a letter of her entire life and what I felt like as a father growing. And that just opened up the floodgates of like growth for both of us together.
Yeah.
So that's big. I mean, it's very. I'm happy that your dad did that because I think that's the best thing you probably can do, because talking, you're going to overtalk. I feel like you'll overtalk each other and blah, blah, blah. And things that get lost, like messages that get lost. But if you sit down and write something and put your heart into it and love and like, you know, whatever you went through, very open, you know, and just give your kid the window to your soul in that sense. It helps out a lot. And that's really, really a powerful testimony, man. Thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah, man, that's major for sure. You know, I've dealt with my father with drug addiction, and he passed away in 2002.
R.I.P.
Yeah, and I know, I think I talked to Harry about this, so I don't know if I expressed it on the podcast, but I don't know the exact reason why. Actually, he was up in New York at the time, but before he left, though, you know, he did, you know, as much as he could to try to reconcile my relationship with him. And you know, I always think about to this day, you know, that last day he was there with me. You know, just the love and, you know, things that he did for me, and you know, the things that he really wanted to, you know, not, I would say redo or you know, make up for, but he did feel, you know, things were going to be on up and up, and he wanted to make things right. But that did open my eye, because I never did judge him for what he went through. You know, I didn't, but I did, of course, felt that neglect. Even to this day, I probably look at it as one of those things where, you know, I deal with that, you know, maybe at times of my life where I was wondering like why he wasn't there. But, you know, to this day, I still never really like judged him, or was like, you know, to the point where I didn't like him or had pain for him or was upset about it. But, man, that's just a heart that I have. And I'm just thankful I do have that forgiving heart, man, because being forgiven is important for anybody to go through, you know, things. You know, forgiving somebody is very important.
You know what? You know why that's so real? Because my dad passed in 2012, right?
R.I.P.
And so
R.I.P.
That part of our journey was important because it allowed me to deal with some stuff in me, right? Because I was holding on to some pain, to your point. My dad, when he died, was still incarcerated.
Wow.
So he had been reincarcerated because of his behavior while addicted. And so, so I saw my dad. He passed on a Tuesday. I saw him that Sunday. I went to the jail to visit him because he was getting sick. And so that part of it, though, it was a different experience. Like where we were, we had been through this conversation. We had, you know, kind of mended, and where I saw him when that last time was a very different experience than my previous experiences. You know, it was a good moment for us to connect. And so that wouldn't have happened without the letter. It wouldn't have happened without the healing. It wouldn't have happened without the willingness to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I could have been stuck in a place,
Right.
you know, with unresolved hurt, because now he's gone, right? Like, I wouldn't have been able to deal with that. But the truth of the matter is, too, when with his addiction, I realized that, and this will sound hard for some people, he was better out of my life than in my life.
Wow.
Because of the power the addiction had on him.
Yeah.
His absence was hard for me as a child, but I don't know the destruction that would have been caused seeing him regularly struggling through his addiction.
Right.
So from that perspective, you know, I've learned that, you know, I am who I am because of him.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that's a blessing, man. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I feel the same way about that
So-
type, you know, that situation.
So what I do want to talk about now, from y'all, just sitting here with y'all testimonies, because you are, you know, from which your fathers and I know y'all dads are smiling down on y'all both, like from which y'all becoming, because you took a gift. Your dad was really good with the computers and everything like that, and you're a souped up version.
Yeah, we talk about how brilliant he
souped up
is.
version of what your dad was.
Yeah, appreciate
and you
that.
talk about your dad. You're an author. We're going to talk about Prepare for Takeoff.
Sure.
You're a minister at a huge, not putting other churches down, but a huge church. Everyone knows Bishop Thomas and New Psalmist and how much love that church gives. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about our, like, what we grew, what you guys grew into, because like I said, Prepare for Takeoff, and I know you guys, I'm just listening to y'all testimony. I know that your dads collectively have happy which y'all become. So I mean, I guess start with Mr. Antoine. Like, how do you feel like now, like, and talk about your book and everything like that?
Interestingly enough, right? Like, my dad, I knew a part of my dad's journey.
Okay.
I knew the addiction part. After my dad passed, I did some research.
Okay.
Old newspaper articles, all kinds of stuff. When my dad was, while he struggled with addiction, there was this other part of him that wasn't all who he was.
Yeah.
You know, he worked with the youth committee to get a park named after Malcolm X, and
Man, you about to make me cry
he
here,
did
man.
all of these things, like, in school, and he was an incredibly gifted, believe it or not, writer.
Wow. See, souped up version.
So he was a gifted writer, and so he was an artist. He was, I still remember the pictures in my grandmother's house about, you know, him in these local fishing contests, and he had the biggest catfish, and he had, you know, all this stuff. And so, like, his addiction was a part of his journey.
Yes.
It wasn't all of who he was.
Wow.
And so the best parts of him,
That's good.
I got.
That's
You
good.
know what I mean? Like, so
good.
as a kid, I just wanted him around, and it was like, oh man, he's not here. I miss him, and I'm mad, and I'm angry, and I'm this, that, and the third. As I grew, I realized that wasn't all that Daryl was. I got other parts of him, right? My mind, my ability, my look, everything about me is my dad. If you were to see the two of us next to each other, and so, you know, it is a blessing. It was a journey, but it was a blessing, man, to be, you know, his child, and to gain the things that I gained from him, and to turn those things into products and projects that I'm proud of, and I know he was proud of, you know. And so you mentioned Prepare for Takeoff. Prepare for Takeoff is a book that I wrote. Let's scale back. Prepare for Takeoff is about a real life journey and experience I had that became a book. But it only became a book because, as the story tells, one of my worst experiences was going to a presentation in Los Angeles. And it starts out like every funny movie, right? Like, every possible thing that you could think went wrong.
Yeah.
Raining, traffic, late for my flight. My bag was overweight. The line was long. My flight was delayed. Like, everything you can think of
Holy moly,
happened on my way to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I finally sat in my seat on that flight, put my head back, And I'm like, Lord, why did I have to go through everything I went through just to go on this flight? I didn't want to go in the first place, but I had committed to go. Yes. That's a lesson for somebody else, right? When you make a commitment, you got to stick to it.
Yes.
But so yeah, man, I got on this plane, put my head back, said, God, why'd I have to go through all this? Woke up, God said, what did you go through? And I started writing an outline, which I used that day when I got to Los Angeles. I used for the presentation. Right. Finished my presentation. I was ready to go. A lady came up to me and said, is that somewhere where, like, is that like at the time when I did it? She was like, is that on a CD or, can I buy that somewhere?
So she was in the presentation and heard
everything?
She
was there to listen as an audience member.
Okay.
And she asked for the presentation.
She wanted that.
Wow.
Never thought about making it into something that somebody else would want to buy. It was just what I literally went through.
Just lived that.
Yeah.
And so from that question, I don't know who that lady is today. But from that question, it spurred me to think bigger than that experience.
The situation itself.
Prepare for Takeoff became a manual. First half is literally my story. The second half is more like self-help and some questions and kind of breaking it down into like journaling what you went through that aligns with the story that you heard in the first person. In the first portion.
Yes. Nice, man. That sounds inspirational.
And we can't scoff on this. Come on, you said now 15% of that book was written, right? 15% of this book was written.
Yeah.
And the other was
my process. There might be somebody who's watching Moody, somebody who is interested
Jay-Z,
in
let's go.
Right?
Let's go. Jay-Z.
So the
was
process
just watching something about that.
The process for me, and I shared this with one of my guys back in New York. Shout out Corey Porter. And so
Corey Porter, shout out.
What I did was I spoke the book.
Yeah.
I wasn't really, like, just being honest, I wasn't dedicated to the craft of writing. And so because I wasn't dedicated to the craft of writing, I always had my phone on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would just turn on my notes, and or the audio notes. And I would literally speak ideas as they came to me.
Amazing.
And so I would I spoke the other 85% of the book, transcribed what I spoke. I had a speech to text technology on my computer. I would play and it would transcribe.
Wow.
And so I would just read it. Make sure that everything was right, because sometimes when you're talking to your phone, it comes out on it's crazy.
Baltimore accent is horrible with mine.
So I had to go back in and edit that way. But 85% of this book was spoken. So for somebody out there who's dying to write a book, who has a book in them, who wants to get their project out, you got your phone with you all the time.
Yeah,
speak it.
Speak that thing, and it will be what you want it to be. Speak those things that are not as though they are, and watch them come to pass.
Real good book, too. Real good.
Talk about it, man.
Mine worn out. I mean, his look good.
Talk about it.
But
And Prepare for Takeoff is 5 years old. Prepare for Takeoff came out in 2017.
Yep. And this book really helped me. I remember I was driving 2.5 hours for work, and I didn't know my purpose. I'm like, God, why are you sending me 2.5 hours from work? You know what I mean? And it was tough. And I used to read that book every day on my lunch break, every single day, every day.
Now there's some
I actually
things
thought it was too
here.
short. I thought it was too short after a while.
Harry, you asked me about something earlier, and one of the chapters I think that Harry, kind of like what we've been talking about, is chapter 13, check your baggage.
Yes.
And so where that particular chapter came from and why it's so important is because there are things that you're carrying that can have an impact on you and everybody else connected to you.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
There are things that you're carrying, things you're holding on to that aren't supposed to go on certain portions of your journey. Some things you got to discard. Some things you got to get rid of. Some things, even if you think about, like I said, I was carrying that pain from my dad, right? Some things I had to release. I can't take that into this next season that God has me going into because that pain is going to derail and disrupt the plans that God has for me.
Wow.
So some of us are carrying some stuff and we're wondering why things aren't working out. I would encourage you to check your baggage. What's in there that what kind of pain, what kind of hurt, what kind of hostility, what kind of unforgiveness, what kind of bitterness, resentment, what are you carrying every single day and wondering why things aren't going your way.
Man,
Talk about it.
It's real. Like, I feel like a brand new, personally, I just feel like a brand new person just from, like I said, all my trials that I've been through this year, but like not carrying that stuff with me, not carrying the pain and forgiving, understanding. I know you talked about it earlier, understanding that everyone's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and being empathetic, like what Moody was saying, and just basically moving on. It's basically, it's hard to say, but you got to move on. You either die with that situation where you can grow, or move on.
You know why move on is so hard? Because we think that move on means you never get resolution.
Wow.
So people are afraid to move on or resist moving on because they want closure. And so they don't want to move on because if I move on, somebody needs to hear me. My feelings need to be validated. I need to know that I wasn't crazy. So they have a hard time moving on. I would challenge you to say, instead of moving on, grow through.
Oh yeah.
Because your experiences, right? You don't lose. What they say, you never lose. You win or you learn.
Wow.
Right? And so you don't lose at anything.
Oh, win or learn. I never heard that.
You understand that this is a process. This is a journey. This isn't about, oh man, I got here, I made it. I wrote a book, I made it.
Yeah.
That's one piece of who I am.
Right.
There's more yet to come out of me.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in my difficult spaces, how am I growing through? I grow through my victories and I grow through my adversities. I don't just move on. I don't move on like it never happened.
Yeah.
I take the lessons that I'm supposed to get from it. Right? In sports, right? They study game tape. The Ravens look at game tape whether they win or they lose. And they learn so that the next week they can make the proper adjustments. Matter of fact, they do it at halftime.
Right.
They go in, they look at that, and they make, if they're smart, any team will make an adjustment so that they can come out in the second half and be better.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. You grow through something. You don't just move on from it. You look at the situation objectively. All right, let me just let me look at this. You and I talked about this, right? You looking at it on the first floor. All you see is the struggle. Go up 2 or 3 floors and then look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Look at it from the top and say, okay, I see why I stumbled. What I didn't realize was there was this branch right here. Right. What I didn't see over there was my unforgiveness. What I didn't see right there was my dependence on that person. What I didn't see right there was my unwillingness to forgive. And so, as a result, when you look at it from a different perspective, you can learn from your situation and you can grow through your situation.
So go through, then grow through.
You go through to grow through.
Amen.
That's major.
Everything we go through allows us to grow if we embrace it, which is all about perspective, which Moody and I were talking about earlier before we even started this.
That's amazing too. And I wanted to get back to Moody, my man Moody, because about your dad and how you go through and grew through. Look at what you are now. Like looking back at your dad. How, if you had a conversation with your dad right now, what did you think he would say to you, man, about what you have become?
Man, I mean, he would definitely be proud. He would definitely give me insight to technology that's around us right now. He knew a lot about this stuff, man. I'm talking about he was working on Apple computers back in '82 and 83 when I was born, type of thing. So. If he was here, man, I know, like I said, I would just pick his brain about stuff, but he would definitely tell me probably, you're doing amazing work. You're teaching yourself. I'm learning things that I want to learn. The passion that I have, I know it's visible to him, and I think he lives through me, to be honest, man. There's a lot of times where, some of the stuff that I'm learning, I didn't think I was capable of a lot of these things. Wow. You know what I mean? I didn't, but I had a lot of drive, I had a lot of faith, and I trusted my gut. I trusted what I love and like. And, just the technology, I'm always good with my hands, and a lot of things that I'm thankful for who he is because I get it from him, of course. And, every time I talk to my aunts and my cousins or my mom, they always talk about how brilliant he was, what I mean? Right. And how smart he was and things he can just do just naturally. And that does, it is it hurts a little bit just because I want to experience more of that, You know what I mean? From him, you know, I've seen it, but I didn't really experience all of those traits of him. You know what I mean? So like I said, I feel like a lot of it I'm trying to like experience through me. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel about it, man. But he's a good man, you know, Rodney, Stevie Moody, man. He was brilliant, man. They always talk about how smart he was. And I got 2 younger brothers that's amazingly smart too, man. Like, it's amazing how my journey is. Like, my mother had 3 children on her side, and then my father had 3 children on his side. I'm the youngest of my mother's children, but I'm the oldest of my father's children.
Wow.
And then my younger brothers, you know, I speak to my one of my younger brothers, but one of my younger brothers that's like a genius. Like, he's like a real genius. He lives up in New York, and like I said, when he was in New York, he had another, you know, lady that he was with, and we don't get to see him much, but I would definitely always like to get to see him. And like I said, it's still love. I need to probably, you know, try to reach out, get that relationship. There's some things that still need to grow and heal out of my father's tree. So
it's amazing.
He's going to be here forever, man. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. I'm great, man. I'm glad.
Thank you for that, brother, too. I appreciate that, man.
Nah, no doubt, man. No doubt, because we got healing and to my father, I think I'm a seed version of him. Like, far as like my dad, he has a weird way of asking questions. So my dad was in construction like myself, but he was a drywall finisher. And his struggle was he used to drink. He used to drink a lot. And like, it took me a while to understand why my father drank so much and things of that nature. But he was laid off of work all the time. He was laid off of work. And like, my mom had to hold everything down at the crib. And as a man, like, I'm just only looking like how I would feel. Like, I would feel like less of a man if my wife had to hold everything down at the crib. So like I think when it was time to discipline us, like, he overdid it because like he felt like he had to like put his stake in something. But even to this day, he asked me, like, he'll say, "Oh man," even like I'm running a job now, he'll say, "Oh man, like, you know, y'all gonna be working during the wintertime, you gonna make sure you," and it's just like, Dad, like, I think knock on wood, I feel like with God blessing, I'm secure, man, and I ain't been laid off in not on wood 10 years or something like that, you know what I'm saying? And when I did get my company vehicle, this new company, shout out to Anchor Mechanical, when I got the company vehicle, my dad, he made sure that he prayed over that company vehicle.
Wow.
And I talked to my owner about that of the company, and he was like, "Man, you brought me to tears saying that, because father, you don't hear about that." So my father has his way of doing things. Shout out to Pastor Harry Swan II.
Shout out to Harry Swan II, Mr. Harry Swan.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So it's cool, man. It's cool, like, to see the generations coming. For my son that's coming up, I mean, I know he's 2.5 now. I can see little things of me that's in him. I can look at the pictures when I was young and his age. If I got a picture where I got a hat on and I'm smiling, Oreo hat on, and he got an Oreo hat on and he's smiling, I can put it side by side, and it's just amazing, man. Just seeing my son, and I pray to God that I'm able to see him grow, to see what he becomes. So it's generations, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, man. Hey, nothing like, you know, like, I got a son too, you know, with him growing up and learning, it's amazing, man. And, you know, just thinking about that, you like growing up in this world, man. And I don't want to get too down on this world, but there's a lot of stuff going on out here in this world.
Sure.
You know, and just us being men of God and speaking how we speak, and I feel as though we always keep positive, you know, things around us, like, you see, you know, fellowship and, you know, prayer, and, you know, I pray for negativity to move past me. I pray for positive, I pray for positive space around me. I pray for my mind to be clear and stuff like that. So a lot of things, you know, do happen around us, and it doesn't affect me as much, or might affect as it was somebody else. But how do you just feel about some of the stuff that's going on out here in this world, man? Like the news, you know, the world atmosphere. I mean, the war, the spiritual warfare that we go through.
Yeah,
you know, and it's real. Like, we all go through it. It's around us. You know what I mean? You got to be guarded. You know what I mean? Like, and of course, you can elaborate as much as you want, but how do you feel about like what's going on out here in this world that we see every single day?
I think my perspective is So when I became when I gave my life to God, I was one of those people who thought that by saying yes to God, that all of my challenges would disappear. And so the first couple of times I experienced difficulty, I struggled, right, with how to manage it. What I learned on this Christian journey is to expect the obstacles. Obstacles can come in the form of internal and external. And so when you say, how do I feel about the stuff that's going on in the world? I'm disturbed by it because there are so many things. Like every day there's a new thing, right?
It is.
But I also know there's nothing new under the sun for God.
That's right.
And so while it may be a surprise to me, there are no surprises to God. And that same question that God asked me in my kitchen when I was crying, do you trust me, is what I come back to. Do I trust God to have control over all of these things? And are there some things that I have been called to impact? Right? Because there's a God gives all of us gifts, skills, and abilities.
Yes, he does.
He gives us lanes that we operate in. He gives the doctor the gift, skills, and abilities to heal the sick person. He gives the psychiatrist the gift, skills, and ability to help the person function and cope mentally. Right? But he gives you, Harry is doing his thing in the construction world. You're doing your thing in electronics and technology and the content complex and all of the stuff you're doing here. So all of us have a place where we can make a difference. So how do I feel about all that's happening in the world? I feel like there are no surprises to God, and God has placed me in the space that I'm in for this season with intention. And so my job is to be as impactful as I can, to intentionally lead as many people into a dynamic, engaging, and loving relationship with Jesus Christ. That's the mission and mantra of our church. That's what I personally accept. That is my job, right? To introduce people to a savior. Everybody's not going to believe what I believe, and that's okay. But I would tell them that I believe that there is a need to be grounded because there are many attacks coming at you from every direction. So whatever you're going to do, find a faith that is yours to be grounded in. Me, obviously, I'm a Christian. I don't knock my Muslim brothers. I don't knock my Hindu. Do what you do. But in this world, with all that's going on, I believe each of us needs something we can hold on to, and that rock for me is Jesus.
That's a fact, man. Wow, what a way to answer that question. And basically, I know what you know. Also, with that, you can only control what you can, and continue to live that life that you're living and be impactful in your daily life, what you're doing. I mean, that's the best way you can describe it, because a lot of things we can't control, man. Is nothing, like you said, nothing new is to God. So whatever it is will be. I mean, this earth is going to be here far after we are not here. So I mean, whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
It's almost like trying to read a book and staying focused on the book, where it's like a whole bunch of bombs just going off around you, but you just staying focused on your task.
Keep your eyes on him, man.
You gotta keep it, like you said. It's powerful, man. That was a powerful. That was a powerful answer, man.
And Moody, you said something I think I would challenge that I've learned over time, and somebody else might disagree with me, but I don't believe we control anything. Because you said, you control what you can control.
Right.
I think we have influence and impact, but we don't have control. Right? You and I were talking earlier, right? And to say I have control takes God out of the equation. Right? Wow. And so that's that ego thing, easing God out. And so little things happen where we start to say, I have control over this. I made this happen. I did that. You may have influence, but ultimately my belief is that God makes it happen.
That's right.
He gives you the gift, skills, and ability to use in a way that gives you the opportunities. And then it's on you to make the most of them.
That's right.
So you may have influence and impact, but you don't have control.
Wow. That's big. I respect that. I'm listening to that too, taking that in. like you said, you don't have control over things. You know what I mean? Like everything that you don't control people's actions. You don't control what may happen when you walk out of this door. You can't control that. You can, like you said, you can have the influences to move a certain way.
Yeah.
You can, want to live a certain way or do things to impact people's lives. But yeah, God got control of all of this. That's a fact.
Yeah. Life is about 10% about what happens to you. 90% how you respond to it.
Yes.
Wow.
I believe that.
You know what I mean?
Deep.
I think we get it twisted and say it's all about what happens to us.
How you respond
but
to
it's
it.
all about how you carry it. It's all about what you do with the things that come your
deep,
way.
Man.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah, most definitely.
Man, that book, I'm going to get that book, man. For sure. I'm going to get that. I need to read that.
Prepare for Takeoff. It's available on Amazon. You can always go to my website, AntoineGarrett.com, and order it there. But yeah, Prepare for Takeoff is a the interesting thing, Moody, is the subtitle. Overcome beliefs and behaviors blocking your best life.
Yes.
Because what gets in our way is the things we think and the things we do.
Yes.
When life's not going right for us, I always say, come back to those two things. What do you believe and what are you doing?
Wow.
Those two things are generally the two things that are our biggest impediments to the best, living our life like it's golden. I'm living my best life, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
If you're not having that experience, what do you believe and what are you doing? And on the other side of that, what don't you believe and what aren't you doing? Do you believe the best about yourself or do you believe the worst about yourself? Do you believe you deserve the best? Or do you believe you deserve to suffer? Are you actually disciplined? Are you putting things in place? Are you do you have a plan that goes along with your dream to achieve your goal? Or do you just spend your days daydreaming?
Wow.
Major.
It's major.
What are your beliefs and what are your behaviors? Those two things will have an amazing impact on your life.
That's a fact.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Wow. So, but before we go, we got to talk about all God.
Yes.
So, what is the what made you come with all God?
I didn't. What brought about all God, and Harry's talking about all God, the shirt, and all God is a sub ministry. It's a ministry effort because what happened is I was watching the world. And I saw so much in the world about being self-made. And this one's the youngest self-made billionaire. And this one is self-made this. And I'm self-made and nobody did this for me.
Right.
And I was sitting there and I'm like, well, where is God in the conversation?
Wow.
And so through prayer and conversation with my wife, we really started to have those conversations. And so in the scripture, 1 Corinthians 1:31, it talks about not only boast about God. And what I was seeing was too many people boasting about themselves. Back to that ego thing, right? Easing God out. And so many people left God out of the conversation. And so what this was a recognition that all that I have, all that I am, all that I can be is a result of God. Right. And so I know we're, wrapping it up, but real quick story, real quick testimony. I was born sick.
Oh.
I was born sick and ended up needing to be airlifted to a hospital and was there for some months and all of those kinds of things, even to the point of the hospital staff saying they had done all they could do.
Wow. So
they told my family, prepare for his last rites. I'm an infant.
Wow.
Prepare for his last rites and all of that kind of stuff.
It's tough.
So my Uncle Mike, who lives in Memphis, who's a pastor in Memphis, told me the story.
Shout out to Uncle Mike.
He told me the story because obviously he was alive. I was the baby. And so he said they called for him to come. And he came to the hospital where I was at that time in 73. I was in in a little incubator in the plastic. And he said he went into the space and, they told him to go in, perform last rites. And he said he walked in praying to God, if I could just touch him. He said at that moment, I kicked my heel out of the plastic. And he was able to touch me and pray over me.
Wow.
They went from tell your family to come and say goodbye to my family rejecting what the doctor said. And you looking at me 48 years later, almost 49 years later. And then that question, so then how could it not be about God?
All him. All
right?
him.
How could it not be all God? My very existence, I still bear the scars on the inside of each ankle from where they fed me with intravenous tubes.
Wow.
So I still bear the scars for where I almost wasn't here. But God. So how could I not give God proper credit? Now, I done some things that tried to short circuit God's brain.
Yeah, right.
But when I step back and look at it, Moody, I have no other choice but to give God all the credit.
Amen.
That's dope, man. That's good. Good stuff.
That's
Merch is up. You can definitely get the merch for sure. Definitely get the book. And if anyone wants to get into the men's group or the program that you're in, how would they reach out? Maybe get into that as well.
Absolutely. You can register for all of the connection groups and the classes that we have at New Psalmist, obviously by going to the New Psalmist website, and that's newpsalmist.org.
Okay.
To connect with me, you can hit me on the socials at thecoachag, or if you're looking directly for All God and the daily scripture and merch and those kinds of things, we're on IG as well as it's All God _ 1 Core 131. Now that core is 1 Corinthians, so it's 1 Corinthians 131.
Okay.
But if you just typed in All God, you'll find it. There's a picture of my wife and I actually as the thumbnail, the profile pic. And so yeah, we're there, sharing the word, encouraging others, building fellowship and relationship with other people, enjoying the time.
Shout out to her, man. Shout out to her, man.
Yeah, shout out to the missus. Shout out to Ray.
For sure, man.
Power couple.
Absolutely.
Man, what you think, man? With this one right here.
I mean, wow.
Hey, man, I don't even top this one. I mean, it's a lot of good info on this one. A lot of gems here on this one.
A lot of gems here.
Appreciate you coming through, man. And again, we're going to continue to connect and build. And this was amazing. This was inspirational for me. Good for me today. I needed this, much as you might not know or think, or someone out there might know and know. This was amazing, man. Thank you.
Touching people.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, brothers, for the opportunity. I appreciate you for what you're doing. And I want to encourage both of y'all to keep going, right?
Yes.
Because remember, like I said, this book started out as a conversation. You don't yet know what the scriptures say. Eyes have not seen and ears have not heard the great things that God has in store. So I want to encourage y'all to keep going and encourage y'all to keep providing the content, especially from the space of, and I appreciate the transparency questions, right? Because as men, as black men, we got to put up so much just to be safe out in the world.
Yeah.
To have a place where y'all can come behind the mics and really just talk about the stuff that's on your heart.
Talk about it.
Is a valuable commodity for us as a community.
Thank you.
So I want to encourage y'all to keep pushing, keep doing your thing. It's valuable. I watch, I listen. I'm a fan. So I'm excited about where this is going.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
brother. Appreciate that, man. Nothing like good, genuine support. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
appreciate that.
Yes,
Supporting
sir.
each other.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got, man. So we,
Hey, another one. I love it.
So I hope you love this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. I go by the name of Big O. Got my guy Moody here.
Yeah, man. You already know.
Yeah. Antoine of New Psalmist Baptist Church of
Big.
All God University.
Big.
Yes, sir.
Big.
And this is the Transparency Podcast.